Writing methods in Unicorn requires you to understand four things fundamentally, more or less at the same time. So those four things would be Unicorn syntax, blocks and phases, the Avant flow path, and breakpoints. Today we're going to look at blocks and why they're useful. I will touch on a bit on breakpoints with blocks, but really that's a discussion for another time. Blocks and phases really are just a way to organize instructions inside of Unicorn. Each block or phase has three things. It has a name, a base, and a breakpoint. Phases are like blocks. In fact, they even have the word block inside of them. But with phases, they can only be on the first level. Blocks cannot be on the first level. So this is the top level right here, right under main. Okay, so any of these points open, right? This is just this is the second level, and you can put blocks there. We're not going to be writing a method today. The method we're looking at isn't going to be able to actually do anything really. We're just going to be moving around blocks, creating them, and seeing what they can and can't do. Okay, so first, adding a phase. If we want to add a phase to the main level, that's really where you have to start. With any new method, you're going to open up the phase library, which is here under view. Oops, there we go, phase library. And all of the top ones, except for the last one, are all preset methods. They're all preset phases. And your rationale might be different from the people who wrote these phases. And that's why I like using my own empty method, my own empty phases to write my own method. To put in your own phase, all you do is you select the phase you want, right? You click it and you drag it and drop it in the method phase area, and then now it allows us to change the name. So the last phase we had was wash, so we'll just call this one elution. Easy enough. And now we have an empty phase. It's got its name, the base, and the end, which is the breakpoint, the end block. Now you can see why I say phases are just like another kind of block. Okay, so you can add blocks using the instruction box down here. I'm just going to close up the phase library because we're not going to be using that anymore. So we'll create a block inside of the method settings phase, right? And I'm just going to highlight somewhere inside of here. So I'll just highlight base, same as main. And then I'm going to go to the other radio button inside of the instruction box. So I'm going to click this, and then there's an instruction here called block. Now there's a drop down here, and it's populated with nothing. So it's kind of confusing. How do I put a block in here? You just type in a name. So I'm just going to do new block, right? And then insert. And so there's my new block that I just wrote. And you'll see it's just got a name, a base, and the end block breakpoint in it. Okay, so now that's how we create phases, and that's how we create blocks. What are some things that we might do with blocks? One nice thing you can do with blocks that's pretty straightforward is you can use it for organization. So I'm going to rename this new block, and I'm going to do that by highlighting it, clicking it, and then just going to rename. And I'm going to do flow path. Because what I'm going to do, so that's my new block, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of the flow path related instructions from this method settings phase, and I'm going to put them in here so that the method settings phase doesn't have quite so much stuff in it. It'll make it a little less noisy. So I'm going to start by taking these inlet instructions, and I'm going to move them to the flow path block. So I'm going to right click and go cut, and then paste it in. There we go. Do that with B. Just one or two others. So let's do the column position. Cut. Paste. And the outlet valve. All right, and so now when I close this flow path block, it's a little easier to look at the method settings block, right? There isn't quite so much stuff going on there. That's how you would use a block for organization. Okay, another thing I might want to use for a block for is to create a different base inside of a method. So currently this method has a base as set to time, right? So I'm going to go to the systems equilibration, right? And I am going to create a new block here, block, and it will be, instead of flow path, it's going to be outlet equilibration. Okay, and insert. So in this example, let's say I have a systems equilibration, and I have a couple instructions in here. Maybe I have like I have a system flow instruction, right, for 1 mil a minute, and I have a gradient that I'm running at like 3%. I don't know why we're doing 3%, but I want to equilibrate the outlets, right? We could put in any other instructions in here we want, but I want to equilibrate these outlets, right, for instead of time, right, because for this phase it's same as main, I want to equilibrate the outlets in volume. So I can go to base here, and I'm going to select volume, and then change. So now I'm going to insert my just a couple outlets in here. So outlet valve, we'll just do positions 1 and positions 2. All right, so now because it's volume, any volume that I write in here is going to be in mils. Notice the mils right there. So let's just say I want to do 3 mils for the outlet 1, and then another 3 mils. So this would be 6 mils right here. Change for outlet 2. So remember, it's going to read, the Unicorn is going to open this block, and it's going to say outlet equilibration. It's going to read base, and then this 0 right here, it's going to read that, and then it'll change, after that, it'll change the outlet to position 1, and then it'll wait for 3 mils right here, and then it will read position 2. And then once it's gone, then it'll wait till 6 mils, and once it's done that, it'll end the block. So in this way, we do, we wash these outlets for 3 mils each. Okay. So another thing we might want to use a block for is to be able to insert a variable in a space where we really couldn't have another variable. So in this phase right here for equilibrate the column, I have it set up right now so that you have a pH valve where you're opening the pH valve to monitor the pH. And let's say we want to be able to get an initial reading of the buffer before we actually open the column and start equilibrating the column. So I already have a variable set here for the length of the column equilibration. So if we open the pH valve here on this instruction line, and then let's say we want to wait for another 5 minutes because our base here is time, right? So, and for this block, we're running the same as main. We would have to, if we want to have another variable right here for the pH valve, if we want to go for another 5 minutes, we would type in here 5.0, and then we would do pH, right? And then, of course, if we want this, variable here, we'll run into a problem. So there can only be one base variable that's allowed for each block. In this case, what we can do instead is insert, like, basically what amounts to an empty block. And then that will allow us to have a second variable inside this block. So right here, like in between this pH valve and this column position, I am going to put in a block, and we'll just call it the same thing as the variable. Right? Insert. And then I'm just going to change this breakpoint at the end of the block to the variable that we wanted. So 5 minutes, and then pH equal, and it will now allow us to insert that. So just a quick note about how blocks are read in terms of breakpoints. This 0 is going to be read. I have a whole video about reading Unicorn syntax, and you really should check that out if you're having trouble like understanding how these are read. Basically, we're going to open this valve right here, and then we're going to see this instruction for this block. The 3 zeros, then the block, and then Unicorn will open the block, read the zeros the same as main instruction, and then it'll see this 5 for this 5-minute breakpoint wait time, and then it'll wait 5 minutes, and then once it's done that, it'll go to the next instruction for the column position, and then after that it will it'll change the valve when it reads the column position instruction, and like I said, after that it will start to wait for 5 minutes for the column equilibration. So this allows us to insert a variable into a block, like a base variable that we weren't allowed to have before. Another great thing you can do with blocks is you can actually synchronize them. So this is really helpful actually. So I'm going to open up this load sample phase. And so if you're loading your sample with a sample pump, this seems pretty straightforward to me that you're going to want to have, I already inserted these instructions before we started this. We're going to want to turn off the system flow and then have the sample flow on. And this is after we change the injection valve and everything. I didn't put those instructions in here because I want to make this simple. It's easy to see, right? So we turn off the system flow, we turn on the sample flow, and then after that we're going to turn the sample flow off. But of course we're going to want to turn the system flow in this wash phase right here. We're going to want to turn that on. So if we go back up here to the method settings phase, right, we have this systems flow instruction right here for 1 milliminute. And let's say we want to synchronize this, because what we want to do is we want to have only one variable that's listed for the entire method for the system flow. So it'll cover running the chromatography system, not only for these phases before the load sample phase, but also after it. And how we do that is we have a block with the same name on both sides, in both places. So I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to make a new block right here by the systems flow instruction, and we're going to call it what you might think, flow rate. We could do systems flow rate if we want. Why don't we do that? No, we'll just call it flow rate. Insert. And then we're going to open this block, and then we're going to cut and paste it in. So now the only requirement for a block to be synchronized is that the block name for the block is the same in both places. So in this case, I'm going to copy this block, and then I'm going to paste it after the sample flow rate. Paste. And so this window comes up, and this window asks us if we want the blocks to be independent or not. If we want them to be independent, we want them to operate by themselves, we would hit yes. If we want them to be synchronized, we hit no. So we're going to hit no. And then now we have this block down here called flow rate. And you can see it's 1 milliminute here, as well as, don't have it open up here. So it's 1 milliminute there. So now you can see both of them at the same time. And I'm going to go up here to this tab, the phase properties, and I'm going to click on it. And you can see the flow rate right here is 1 milliminute, right? So if I change this, because this is what it would look like in the variable list. So if I change this right here to 2 mils a minute, then this is in the method settings phase, right? So we're looking at this right here, it's changed to 2 now, but also in this block down here in the wash phase, it's also changed to 2. I don't have to do this, I don't have to make that change inside this phase properties tab. I could go back to the text instructions tab and I could change it here instead of the text instruction. So here I'll do 3 mils a minute, change. And so you notice it says 3 mils a minute down here in the wash phase, but also in the method settings phase, it also says 3 mils a minute. So we've been able to synchronize them together. So we could do this, like what I would say is the harder way. We could create another block, and this time we did a block about the flow path before, so we'll do another block, flow path, right? And we'll hit insert. Okay, so we've got the flow path block there. So I'm just gonna copy, like before when we were like just talking about organizing a block, right? Cut, then something right here, paste, cut, then paste. So we've got the A and B right there. So now, let's say for whatever reason, I want to have this flow path block. I want another synchronized block down here in the wash phase. So I'm going to minimize the flow rate block, and I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to have it set to block, and I'm going to insert a new block in this space right here. So I guess I'll highlight this. Flow path. So last time we copied and pasted. This time I'm just creating a block. I'm typing it in and insert. And so here's my flow path block. And, it's dependent. Did I misspell it? Yeah, because it's lowercase. Change. Oh, see, there we go. It's now synchronized. It didn't ask me where before, but it doesn't have to because they're synchronized. Because I just typed it in, I guess. Yeah. So, like for example, here in this case, right, I could change the position here of A1, and it should change it up here in this flow path, right? So flow path A1, A2, change. And so, yep, they're synchronized now. So another thing we can do with blocks is we can use them as variables. So I've set up a phase here called column cleaning, right? And the phase is empty. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to insert 2 blocks, okay? And this block is one of them is going to be called column cleaning. So I'll just say clean in place instead of column cleaning. I think this is better. And insert, and I'm going to do another block, and I'm going to call this one skip. Insert. Okay, so you see how there's a variable block right here? So I'm going to, there's a variable in front of the block name. So I'm going to call this a variable, and I'm going to say it's sip or skip. Okay. Change. So now I'm going to actually take this skip block and I'm going to delete it. So when I hit delete, a window is going to come up is, do I want to actually delete it or do I want to move it to unused? And I'm going to select move to unused. So now I have an unused block. So I can go over here if I'm starting up a method, and let's say I'm going to run scouting. I'm going to run 3 runs in a row without cleaning the column, and then on the 4th run I actually want to clean the column. So how I do this is, in the cleaning in place block, I have this as a variable. Let's see here, I think I can go to the phase property. So this is what the variable would look like, right? So here's the variable, and it's clean in place, and I will select I can select any of the blocks. So while I could use the flow path block, that would just be kind of silly. It would just reissue the flow path instruction. Let's say I would use the skip block. So now when I go back to the text instructions, you can see that the skip block is in here now. So skip, and here's the clean in place block. So let's make this a little bit more apparent. So usually the skip block is like completely empty, but I am going to make the skip block last just for 1 minute. Change. And And then the clean in place block, I'm going to put a flow path instruction. Let's say our cleaning agent is on like A3, right? Insert. And then let's say we want this to last for 5 minutes. Change. Okay. So this is clean in place, and then this is the skip block right here. And so then this is what the variable would look like. Right now I'm using skip. So, and you can see that's in the text instructions. We currently have selected skip. But I go to the place where I'm going to select the variable, and I'll just select clean in place. And that's why I called it zip or skip, right? Because those are the two options that I have. And I'm going to select that, and you'll notice that as we go back to the text instructions, skip is down here in unused. And the cleaning instructions for inlet A3 and the 5-minute cleaning are in there. Okay, so that's blocks as variables. All right, so one of the absolute best things that just makes Unicorn super powerful are watch instructions. And watch instructions actually involve blocks. So we're gonna open the elution block. This is a great place to use watch instructions. And so before the gradient happens, right? So I'm going to insert the watch instruction. So it's going to be watch. And so, usually for a watch instruction, you want to start collecting when the UV starts going up. So the signal we're going to watch for is UV, and then the signal is going to be greater than. And let's just say we're going to be looking for a value of 50 milliobservance units or higher. Okay, so now I wish that would go away. Okay, so that's the value right there, and then the action is actually you can write your own block here. So there's a bunch of preset block like in things we could do. We could hit next breakpoint or hold or continue or something like that. But I can just type in a block name right here. So we're going to do start collection. And this will create a new block. So insert. And so now I have my watch block on. And once the UV value goes greater than 50, I can insert my own instructions in there. Like the classic instruction would be you would change the flow path. And so we're going to change the outlet valve, right? So we can collect that. We'll change it to outlet 2, insert. Did it go in there? No, I didn't have the right spot selected. So let's just delete it, and then we'll do it here. Flow path, outlet valve, outlet 2, insert. There we go. So once the UV goes up, we would start collecting an outlet 2. Obviously, you might want to turn off the outlet valve, right? And there's like a variety of different ways to do that. One way we could do it is we could put a block inside of this block. And so, other watch instruction, we could do watch until the UV signal is less than. We're going to select less than for the test, and then we're going to do 50 again, right? It goes up past 50 and then goes back down 50 the other way, and then we're going to do stop collection. Insert. And just to kind of like round everything off, I'm going to put a flow path instruction in here to change the outlet valve to waste. Whoops. Waste. Insert. There we go. So you can have blocks inside of blocks, right? I hope that's everything. Yep, that looks like everything on my side. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this video and you see how powerful blocks are. And if you have any suggestions, please leave a comment below. How you can copy blocks. So normally in loads, I hate it when I do that. Okay, so now I want